I was a big fan of Black Mirror back in the day. I even bought the spin-off book inside Black Mirror, which could really use a volume 2. But the last series was 4 years ago, and it wasn't very good. There was one about Miley Cyrus, one about virtual reality sex, and another one. But none of them were up to the standard we've come to expect from the show. But now they're back with 5 new episodes, so let's see if the break has done them any good. This is a fun piece of metafiction to kick off the new series. It's one of those episodes that starts off simple and gets more and more complex as it goes along. Salma Hayek gives a great performance, poking fun at her public image, and Annie Murphy is also really solid in the lead, with a great little cameo from Michael Cera as well. The premise is disturbingly believable, and you can't help wondering what would happen if Netflix did that to you. Personally, I would just try and live the dullest life possible, so the show would be cancelled immediately. In fact, I've been doing that for years, just to be on the safe side. And I did think there was a missed opportunity, that they could have used the latest technology. They could have created a screen saying, name of account holder is awful, and slotted that into the programme at the appropriate moment, which would have been an amazing moment. But I guess that's not really possible, although video games have been doing that sort of thing for years. But a few days later, they came out with a website where you can do just that. I'm sure nobody will ever think to use that for nefarious purposes. This is a much darker episode than the first one, and almost entirely devoid of modern technology. The closest thing we get is lots of VHS tapes. The plot unfolds convincingly with a likeable central couple uncovering the mystery of their past, and the resolution is certainly unexpected. Despite there being no actual violence, it does feel like a horror movie, and there are plenty of tense scenes throughout, where you think it's all about to kick off. Sadly, the ending is a bit jarring. Once the real story is over, it all becomes a kind of postmodern take on exploitative true crime documentaries, which fits into the same world as the first episode, and I was left wondering if all 5 stories were going to end up tying together in the same way. But it feels rather unearned. They're making the documentarians out to be greedy and exploitative people who deserve the worst possible fate. But for most of the episode, they just seemed like decent people, just trying to tell a good story. So their final fate does feel rather undeserved. It leaves a nasty taste in the mouth, but I guess you can't say that about quite a few Black Mirror episodes. This is the longest episode of the bunch. It feels like an adaptation of a classic science fiction story from the 1960s. It's a very simple setup, with 2 asteroids on a spaceship of some sort, who can transfer their minds into robot duplicates to be with their families on Earth. The technology isn't important, though it does feel far beyond what we've seen in Black Mirror so far, and suggests that this may be set in a parallel universe, as the central trio come to an arrangement which you just know is going to end in tragedy, but you can't help but keep watching to find out exactly how it's all going to go wrong. Aaron Paul gives the best performance, showing he's matured far beyond Jesse Pinkman. You can clearly tell which of the astronauts is inhabiting the robot body just from watching his performance. The resolution is certainly unexpected. I was expecting David to kill Cliff and take his place, with or without the knowledge of his wife. But they went a different direction, one that was even more disturbing. And the final scene is left incredibly ambiguous. You have no idea what's going to happen next, and you probably never will. It all feels more like a low-budget movie than an episode of a TV show, and one that would probably win all kinds of awards. More horror than sci-fi, this feels very unlike the typical Black Mirror episode. There is some focus on technology, with iPods and dial-up internet, all used to conjure up the feel of the early 2000s, which certainly makes it nostalgic for those of us who lived through it. But really, it's just a very simple story, in which the paparazzi are shown to be cold and unfeeling, and just leeching a living off of celebrities. The final twist takes things into the realm of the supernatural, which is certainly new direction for the show, and opens up all manner of new possibilities for future episodes. But taken on its own, it's probably the weakest of the 5. The supernatural theme continues. This is presented as a full-on 1970s horror movie, with the label Red Mirror, which could easily have been applied to the last episode as well, although it would have spoiled the twist. The atmosphere of the 1970s is conjured up really well by the production team. Everything's grey and beige and dull, I barely remember the 1970s, but I'm pretty sure it was just like that. I do really feel for Nida, played by Anjana Vasan. She lives her lonely little life in a world full of racist white people. I guess being the 1970s, there wasn't much to do except read and watch telly. Of course, nowadays you can read, watch telly, and go on the internet. So life's much better nowadays. Things soon take a turn for the supernatural, which would have been a bit jarring if the previous episode hadn't introduced the idea. Paapa Essiedu gives an outstanding performance as the demon. He absolutely steals the episode, he's funny and charming, while all the while egging Nida on to commit murder. The premise feels a bit like the recent movie Knock at the Cabin, only told from a different perspective. And it probably works a lot better than the movie, to be fair. You do find yourself cheering on Nida as she goes about her killing spree, and hoping the police won't catch up to her before she can save the world. The ending does not go where you might expect. I thought maybe the demon would turn out to be imaginary, and Nida was just going on a killing spree because she snapped. Or if the demon was real, it would turn out to have been cheated her somehow. But instead they end things in a very different manner. Which further proves that not all episodes are set in the same universe. But at least the two central characters get to be together, so it feels like a happy ending, even though it really shouldn't. So it's definitely been a varied set of episodes, much more so than usual. Only the first two really fit into the usual near-future world, and the second one is set in Scotland, so it doesn't feel like it. The period settings are all beautifully portrayed, and help the episodes all feel completely different to each other. The addition of supernatural elements also broadens the scope considerably, and it seems they're finally getting away from the conceit that all episodes are set in the same universe. The third and fifth certainly feel like they're off in their own worlds. I guess Bandersnatch also opened up the idea of parallel universes, so it's not completely new. As to my favourites, I'd say Demon 79 is probably up there, with Johnny's Awful probably a close second. Anyway, the break has definitely done the production team a lot of good, so I look forward to the next batch of episodes, whenever they might come out with them. And hopefully they won't leave us thinking. So that's it from me. Please subscribe if you want to see my reviews of all the latest movies and TV shows, as well as really old episodes of Doctor Who, but you can always skip those if you want. Goodbye!